Greetings, all you Titan fodder out there. I'm Duuz-Diz-Din, the eternal sleepy boy, and I'm coming at you with another Attack on Titan chapter review. This time is chapter 115, titled Support. As we open up on this chapter, we see Flock and his band of traitors escorting Hanji to the location of Zeke, where he's basically being held by, where he was supposed to be being held by, the forces. But unfortunately, they actually end up seeing the strike from the Thunder Spear. Well, the Lightning Spear, I guess I should say. And so they go in order to check it out. And there we actually see the poor horses, who got caught up in the explosion, basically dying at this point from all the wooden shrapnel just piercing them. These horses did nothing wrong. Meanwhile, Zeke has literally been blown right the fuck up in half, and he is slowly dying. He is going to that light, and he's slowly getting ready to pass on as he actually remembers the last few moments with his close mentor, who made him, promise basically to do whatever he could, and not only this promise to do what he can to end the suffering of the Eldian people, but is also the information that while he might have the one form of Titan power that could, help manipulate the original Titan power, those with royal blood coming in contact with the power of the original Titan, it doesn't quite work that way. It wouldn't completely, be a one-to-one situation. You would have to have someone you completely trust. It would have to be a relationship of trust, understanding. You'd have to be completely on the same page for something like this to truly work. And, that's how Zeke came to fully understand what he needed to do, and that's essentially, get the one Titan truly on his side. And so after he, ate his mentor, who he ultimately referred to as his father in the end of all things, that just shows how close he actually was to him. Just this close relationship that he saw this man as his father, above Grisha, who he just completely denounced for the most part. And we also see him, rescuing his subordinates, being seen as a god to them, and them spreading his influence out there, and just, spreading the gospel for the most part. And then we actually see the first time he learned of Eren Yeager from Bertolt and Reiner, who explained that Eren Yeager had come into possession of the original Titan, and everything they knew about him, or where the location of the information was, and all that good stuff. And as soon as Zeke had learned about it, he kind of broke down to a certain degree, because it's just like, my God, my father continued to just, create people like us who just end up suffering even more. Zeke's just caught in this loop. It's the ultimate form of despair, honestly, just to see their people and be like, we should never be born. If we were just gone from this world as a whole, that would probably be for the best. It's so representative of the two conflicting ideals of his grandparents, who saw themselves as, these monsters. They completely drank the Kool-Aid in the end. These monsters who, don't deserve life, need to die. It's only by the grace of the Marley that, they are allowed to live, and all that good stuff. And the hopefulness that his, actual parents gave him. And it just melded together into this, very strong will, but this will to just end their entire existence, which is brutal in its own way. And you even see flashbacks to their very first encounter, you know. And he declares it's just like, you're a victim just as much as I was. I will save you, Eren. And we see the moment when Eren had actually infiltrated Marley. And Zeke comments on the fact that he's starting to look like his father and all this good stuff. And he wants him to hear him out. He tells him all this whole situation. He heard the whole situation from Yelena. And he wants to know if Eren is on board with the whole situation. And at first, Eren comments that he was able to access his father's memories. The memories of when his father turned into a Titan and took the power of the original Titan from the ruling faction, and even went as far as to crush the children to basically keep the cycle from just continuing on. And he did this, and at first, it seemed like Eren wasn't quite with it. He didn't understand, that he was with his, Grisha's whole thing of win at any cost to gain their freedom, through rising up. And Zeke's just like, oh, so you're kind of with that, but Eren's just like, if the children had been allowed to live, it could have easily been eaten by them, and it would have just gone back into their hands, and the cycle would have continued, and it just would have kept going, this cycle of them living in the walls until they just basically just withered and died up. But he explains to Zeke that if the Eldians were never born, then the people of the city would have never gotten dragged into this massive plan. They wouldn't have had to die. They wouldn't have had to suffer. All this stuff. And he ultimately comes to the same conclusion. Their ultimate salvation for the Eldian people is to never be born. And he says that he will put an end to the 2,000 years of bloodshed and control through Titans with his own hands. And they will keep moving forward. And you can see that Zeke is touched by this because he feels truly kindred with his brother for the first time in an old time. And instead of shaking hands to kind of seal the deal, he tosses the same ball that his mentor had with him. The way that he ultimately gained the true confidence and the fatherhood that he needed, he does it with his brother, Eren. So it's just like, you see just how much of an impact. I love that. Just how much of an impact that a father-son, a relationship with a mentor, how you can look up to someone and how they can shape your beliefs and ideals and your entire worldview. And all this good stuff. It's just like, it wasn't a direct and complete influence, but it was enough of an influence that it reshaped the way he saw, and who he looked up to and who he thinks about at every single turn. And ultimately, Zeke ends up dying, but not before he sees a glimpse of this girl carrying a bucket of water, out in this desert-like thing. And the next thing you know, you see a Titan just arise, almost like out of nowhere, and slowly makes its way over to Zeke, rips open its own stomach, and then proceeds to stuff Zeke into its stomach. And it's the weirdest, most outrageous thing of what happens next. But, aside from that, we also see how the Yelena and her people's control will starting to just go, with the Jaeger faction just taking over everything. And, you see Pixis sitting down with Elena and Oyakapon, Oyakapon is just having none of this shit. He is completely not happy about any of this. Like, I love this resting bitch face that Oyakapon has, because he just looks like, Man, what's this stupid white girl doing? What's this stupid white girl doing? And Yelena, to a certain degree, seems like she's almost taunting Pixis because he's just like, there's no choice here. You know, you could turn me into a Titan at any second, despite the fact that it's only through manipulation through Zeke that's able to be done, but that's neither here nor there. They don't really know where Zeke is or at what point he could actually, you know, turn them into Titans, at what range they have. Like, the entire military forces are completely at the mercy of the Jaeger faction. And he even comments on the fact that one of the high-ranking commanders, you know, he's just like, I drank the wine as well, along with his son. You know, I have no choice in this matter. And Pixis was like, how long has this been happening? But Pixis kind of puts it together because of the various bandanas. Like, ugh, it all comes back to those damn bandanas. You know, that Jewish Jewish encampments and all that kind of stuff, just like ways to label people you feel are inferior. But you have he points out that those who willingly went over to the Jaeger faction, you know, have these white bandanas to show their loyalty. Those who had to be pulled over and coerced through the threat of the wine that's ingested have these red bandanas, and those who are completely against everything and completely unwilling to cooperate and will only go along with it through threat of the manipulation into Titans because of the wine that was drank, was given these black bandanas. And he even calls them out. It's just like, isn't that the same thing they did over in the Marleyan homeland? And Yelena just simply retorts, yeah, there's a lot to learn from your enemies. But Pixis calls her out. It's just like, you're not really doing a great job of really making allies. Ultimately, you know, you say we were in the wrong for not joining you from the get-go, but look at the tactics you chose to use to poison us, you know, to direct our actions, you know, to manipulate us. You know, obviously you were never to be trusted in the first place if this is the way you chose to go about things. But Yelena simply retorts that, you know, if you had simply trusted Zeke from the very beginning, you know, you could have survived a lot sooner. You know, she puts it all on the cards. It's that had they simply rolled over, had they simply obeyed, you know, things could have moved along a lot quicker and with a lot less bloodshed. But Pixis is unconvinced. You know, this whole thing of, you know, the earth flattening plan, you know, it's not lining up the way they're pointing it out and saying it, which is ultimately true because, you know, their plan is to eradicate their own race for the most part. So, you know, even Pixis is picking up on the fact that Yelena is too lost in this god complex, you know, God worship she has for Zeke. She's just not seeing the forest for the trees. You know, she's not understanding that the plan that Zeke has moving forward just does not make enough sense. You know, and Pixis, the logical person, is picking up on this. But then we finally cut back to Flock and Hanji, you know, coming upon the destroyed cart, as well as the Titan corpse basically smoking there, and Hanji notices that someone is in the bushes below, only to end up finding out that it's in fact Levi. And, you know, we're not shown too much of Levi's body, just to keep it ambiguous as to what exactly he lost. But if you pay attention closely to the panels, you've noticed at least he's either lost his hand or just a few fingers. So, you know, that's one hand he will never be able to use 3D maneuver gear for. And, you know, she declares him dead. She says she's seen injuries like that. It's no more. Levi is dead. Flock's just like, yeah, don't give me that shit. I'm gonna check his pulse, because they're just like, oh, we gotta make sure, shoot him in the head. And he's just like, yeah, let me just check his pulse first to see what's happening. But then the nearby Titan starts to like smoke and dissipate, and Flock's just like, oh, is it just dying? But Hanji's like, no, the steam would go outward. The steam here, it's getting sucked in, and next thing you know, out from the Titan's dissolving corpse steps a fully reformed and youthful looking, honestly, too. He looks completely in a lot better shape than he ever did, fully formed Zeke Yeager. And he's just like stunned to be alive, just like he has the eyes of someone who has just like touched God, basically, for the most part. And Hanji, seeing everybody distracted, immediately takes her friend and just dives right into the water to get GTVFO. Just get out of there as quickly as possible. And they start shooting into the water and all this stuff, because just like, no, it definitely proves that Levi is definitely still alive, but just to the degree that he's in rough shape, and I doubt he's gonna be too well after the fact. But then Flock addresses Zeke, and it's just like, hey, what the hell happened to you? What happened here? But then he mentions, he remembers being in this other world, this sandy place where this girl, some girl he didn't know, was almost basically remaking the rest of his body out of the earth itself. And he felt like years were passing, and just a few moments all within the same instance. And as he looked to the side, he could see something that looked like a path. The very same path that his mentor talked about. That path, that streak that you see whenever someone turns into a Titan. It's almost like he could see the very energy from that. And it raises so many questions, especially in the fact that, like, why Zeke? Why was Zeke chosen to be brought back? I have a theory that it's ultimately that was Ymir, but it raises so many questions about that whole situation. Like, if it was Ymir, why did she choose Zeke? Is she fully on their side? Is she fully up on the Jaeger side of their plan moving forward? Ultimately, will we end like Isayama originally said, and we will have almost like a Mist-like situation where all the people here on this island end up dying off with only one specific person surviving? What will actually end up happening towards the end of all of this? But, Flock asked about all the soldiers in Levi's company that were changed. Zeke, simply says they are gone now, and he says from here on out they will move forward. So Zeke's not dead or anything like that. It's so messed up. It's such a messed up situation. And then we cut to our last scene, which is Gabby sitting in a cell, lamenting over, Sasha's family and the whole situation with them, and crying over Sasha and what Gabby had done, the friend that she thought she gained until it was known that she was the one who killed Sasha. And Gabby is working through her programming, basically. It's just like, they were devils, but why do I feel this feeling? And it's just like, it's regret, it's remorse. You gained a bond, you saw them as humans. That is empathy. That's how you brainwash a person, is to see other human beings as something other, something else. Some creature, monsters, devils. But when you get to know people, embrace your fellow human and understand there's nothing truly different between the two of you. You're flesh, you're blood, you're humans. That's how you gain empathy. That's empathy right there. You know, it's very rare to have someone who doesn't naturally feel empathy because we are raised to feel that. If you've ever had friends before, you've probably felt empathy before. And Gabby is feeling that. She's coming to understand the error of what she had done. And suddenly in comes Eren, you know, and he basically demands, you know, I want you to cooperate with us if you want to save Falco, who's probably in a catatonic state at this point, and she basically wants her to call out over a radio in order to bring the enemy forces to Marley. Although it's just like, yo Zeke, yo Eren, they're already here, as one of the guards with him kills the other guard and points a gun to Eren's face. And Gabby immediately notices this woman as Miss Peck, you know, the cart titan, who is just like Eren Yeager, isn't it? So, you know, Marley's forces have already invaded Paradise Island, are ready to go out on an all-out attack. They are ready to throw down. I feel sorry for the poor bastard who basically is dying with a knife jammed in his throat. But, you know, it's just like, you know, Peck's here. You know, what's going to happen from here on out? Because Eren doesn't even look phased here. He looks like it's just like, oh yeah, cool. Whatever. It's just like, oh my god, what's gonna happen now? You know, Eren has turned into such a G, but it came at the expense of his morals, honestly, which is so unfortunate because Eren's probably been the calmest, coolest, and collected he's ever been. It makes you wonder, because you've turned our main character basically against us to a certain degree. So it's just like, I can't root for him, so what now? Where do we go from here on out? And who do I root for in this situation? Because I don't much care for Marley and their people, and I currently don't much care for the direction that Eren has gone into. So it just really raises so many questions. What's gonna happen with Marley's invading forces? What are they gonna end up doing? Will the Jaeger's plans keep moving forward? If that was Ymir, why did she help Zeke? You know, to what end? And what's gonna happen to Levi? You know, he is messed up. Levi is jacked up. Like 6 ways from Sunday. Just oof. Like, things are not looking good for Levi, and it just raises so many questions from here on out. But hey, tell me your thoughts in the comment section below if you have any theories or opinions on this recent chapter. And hey, if you liked this video, feel free to leave me a like, and if you didn't, feel free to leave me a dislike and tell me what I did wrong in the comment section below. But until then, how about subscribing? Because I would definitely love to see you in the next chapter review as we continue on as Titan attacks Titan. But until then, I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye!